Hey guys, I am back with another SkyWest Airlines video, and today I'll be talking about flight attendant training. And I want to address a couple of things, and I want to address more than just kind of like where you're going to learn, but I also want to talk about what you should bring to training and what you should prepare yourself for. And I really hope that I'm not going to scare you. That's definitely not a purpose of this video, and I be, of course, sharing my experience, which doesn't mean that you will have the same experience. If you're going to SkyWest Airlines flight attendant training, congrats, and I hope you will have fun. Okay, I wrote down a couple of things that I want to talk about, so if I'm staring down, it's because I have this little notebook with me. So let's start with the email that you get. So once you get invited to training, they will tell you that about, and I should also say that I went through training in 2016, so things can be maybe a little bit different this year, but the general things will stay the same. So first thing is that you will get an email and they will invite you to training, and then they will say that about a month or 3 weeks before you start training, they will send you this training packet. The training packet is very important to have because that's where you will find information for your first test. And they will explain to you everything in the email. So I don't think that it's really necessary for me to really explain what's in the email, what's in the training packet, because you will see it on your own once you go to training. But if you have any questions, then don't hesitate to ask. So in the training packet, I think it's about 30 to 50 pages. There are a couple of things to study, and also there are some rules and required items that you will have to bring to training. And one of the required items is, for example, passport. So if you are applying to SkyWest or any airline really, make sure if you don't have a passport that it's like your top priority. Apply for passport. It is a good thing to have, and it is a required item for SkyWest, and you have to have it on day one of training, and if you don't, then unfortunately they will send you home. Then there are a couple of rules meaning what is expected from you as a trainee, and things like that. And then the tricky part is the study material for your first test. Once again, the test is not difficult if you study and if you do what is required from you, right? I don't want to say like this is the question that's going to be on the test. First of all, that's also something that I shouldn't be sharing with you, but I can give you examples of what they're probably going to ask you. So there will be 4 categories to study from: time zones, military time, acronyms, and definitions. There are no airport codes, so please do not learn airport codes, even though different airlines require their trainees to learn airport codes. SkyWest does not. So time zones, there could be a question about if it's 5 p.m. in Utah, what time is in Georgia? Okay? Georgia, United States. Then military time, as someone who grew up in Europe, we use 24-hour clock, so that wasn't an issue for me. But there could be questions such as if it's 3 p.m., what time it is military time. Yeah, so that's pretty easy. And then acronyms and definitions related to aviation. And I will promise you, once you start flying, this will become your second language. But when I was studying for it, I was like, what is this? Like, I've never heard that before, which makes sense because obviously it was really my first time learning something about aviation. But there could be acronyms such as FO, so you have to choose from A, B, C, D. That FO means first officer. And then definitions could be what is the definition of a tailwind? So something like that. Everything's going to be in the packet, and I will promise you, if you study the packet, if you learn the acronyms and definitions, you will pass the test. Everyone in my class passed, and I believe that on all tests you have to pass with 80% or higher, which is very reasonable. Also, throughout the training, you have 2 retakes and 2 overall, not 2 on each test. Now, in the training packet, there will be also like items to bring, the good thing to bring to training, including the dressing and grooming standards. So that's something I would definitely pay attention to. But items to bring that I found very essential, I brought Tupperware and Ziplocs. You will stay in a hotel that has a kitchen, and you can make your own lunch, and you can easily pack lunches, snacks, and so on for your training. So that's very helpful to have. I also had like a water bottle, vitamins, and a sleeping mask. And you stay in downtown Salt Lake. So if you forget something, probably not a big deal, and you can always buy it in the store, but you really don't have much time to go like shopping and free time. But I think those were like my essentials, of course, besides things that every person needs when they travel somewhere for 30 days. And dressing and grooming standards are also explained in the training packet. For men, it was pretty short. For girls, because we have so many options, dresses, skirts, pants, and so on, it gets a little bit tricky, but again, it is explained, so I don't want to get into details really, but just basically modest. No sleeveless shirts. Your skirt or dress must be 2 inches or longer above your knee, and so on. And they also talk about colors for your shoes and so on. So this is something to pay attention to. But what I want to say is, before I joined SkyWest, I had office jobs, so I had skirts and dresses and like business to business casual clothes. But if you didn't have a job like this before, this is something that you don't own, don't spend too much money on this. Seriously, just go ask friends if you can borrow their pencil skirts, their dresses, and so on. Because I would say that the first year as a flight attendant is very challenging, and it is a good idea to save as much money as possible before you go to training. So really don't spend too much money on business clothes. Also, in your hotel room, you will have laundry. You have washer and dryer, so you can do laundry. The training is not a fashion show, and nobody will care that you wore your dress 10 times through the training. Seriously, just pack something that is safe, meaning modest, and will satisfy the company when it comes to the dressing standards. And I would also recommend you, if you are flying to training, don't overpack, because you'll be leaving training with boxes, 2 boxes I think, with your uniforms. And one of the boxes is a heavy winter coat. So especially if you're doing training through summer, in Utah right now it's like 100 degrees, so that's probably not a good idea to just put it on you and fly home. But seriously, like if you can, save space in your suitcase for your uniform, which you will get in training. And last thing before you leave to training is, just like I said, if you can, save as much money as possible and think about something that you can get rid of or downsize. For example, before I went to training, I made sure that I canceled all subscriptions to like Netflix and Hulu, gym, I had some subscription boxes that I get rid of and so on. And all of a sudden I realized I have extra $100 every month. So that's something that I would definitely think about. Maybe you can do a different phone plan. Maybe you can put your stuff to your parents' home and get rid of your lease or so on. Obviously, everybody's situation is different, but it is a good idea to save as much money as possible. Now let's go to actual training. So training is in Salt Lake City and it's for 30 days and you will get 2 days off throughout the entire 30 days, not 2 days a week. It is really exhausting, so just be ready for it. 2 days and that's it. And it's going to be very random. I think our first day off was day 10, and then maybe day 17-ish, 18-ish, no, maybe, I don't know, 20 or 21, doesn't matter. But yeah, it is exhausting and you will look forward to those days. So just saying, if you are out of state, meaning out of Utah, they will offer you to fly you to training, but it will be from SkyWest Domicile. So if you live in New York, the closest SkyWest Domicile to you would be probably Chicago, so you will have to get to Chicago on your own, and then Chicago Salt Lake will be covered by the company. If you are from Denver, great. There is SkyWest Domicile in Denver, so they will pay for your flight to Salt Lake City. And again, I don't want to get too much into details like how to book your flight and so on. This is something that they will explain to you. But hotel is provided by the company. They pay for that. And if you are, again, out of state, you qualify for the hotel stay. At that time, before I went to training, I lived in Utah, but I lived more than an hour away, so I also qualify for the hotel. And it is a good idea to stay in the hotel, even though you might have friends who live in Utah or in Salt Lake City. And the reason why it's a good idea to stay in the hotel is that you will get to know your classmates better. And every morning or whenever you need to go to the training facility, the hotel shuttle will take you. They will provide, that's the transportation from hotel to the training, the hotel shuttle. And let's say that there is an accident on the freeway. If you're on the hotel shuttle, you will be excused. They will not send you home for being late or something. But if you drive to training on your own, then, and if you're late, then they're not going to wait for you and you will be dismissed from training and sent home. And this is something that happened to someone from our training class. So be very careful about it. We had people who drove to Utah. They took their own cars, but then they would get on the shuttle and drive to training facility with us on the shuttle. And I think it's a smart idea. Even if you have to get up early, it's just very safe to do that and get on the shuttle. So now more to the hotel. So the hotel, it's actually, you will stay in suites, which is really nice because they have, just like I said, they have a kitchen and they have a laundry room with washer and dryer. And you will have 1 or 2 roommates. At first I have 1 and then I had 2, and I loved all of them. They were so great. And it's really nice to be in the hotel room with someone and support each other. I will say this, and maybe don't listen to me, but I know Salt Lake pretty well. I went to school in Salt Lake, so I know the area where the hotel is, and I wouldn't recommend anyone to be really alone, during the night, because there is a park where a lot of homeless people stays, and there are also homeless shelters, And this is something that obviously the hotel doesn't tell you, or SkyWest doesn't tell you this. But I told my friends, just be very careful. A lot of homeless people. This is not the best area. I didn't have any problem. I don't know if anyone from our training class had a problem, but just be careful. Salt Lake is a beautiful city and very very safe. Just that area is not the best. But I know it sounds kind of scary, but don't be scared. Just really just be smart and stay safe. Um. So then next thing, so I talk more about the transportation that the hotel will take you to the training facility. So the training facility is basically at the airport. It's kind of like off-site, and you'll be overseeing the air traffic control, and then you can also, it's kind of next to like Delta hangar, so you'll be trained in SkyWest hangar, and you'll be looking at SkyWest sorry, not SkyWest Airport, Salt Lake Airport. So the shuttle will take you every morning or afternoon, depending on the schedule. It's different every day, and every day you also spend there really like between 5 to maybe 10 hours, even kind of depends. So every day is just, yeah, very different. And the tricky thing is they don't tell you what time you will finish. So they're really training you for the real life of a flight attendant, because sometimes you have days there like you don't know that if you're finishing at 4, just like your schedule says, you might finish at 9. That's just the reality. So every day, from like what I remember, or most days were really really PowerPoint heavy. So if you are like me, if you have problems with paying attention to things, I don't know, get some sort of energy supplements that will keep you awake. Honestly, even though I promise I'm one of the worst people when it comes to paying attention, during training I just found everything very exciting, and it's something I wanted to do. So focusing actually wasn't so bad. At the end of the 30-day training, you are burned out, definitely. But the PowerPoint heavy days are at the beginning. And I remember the first day we started at 7 and we finished like at 3 or 4, and it was just PowerPoint, 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 and that was hard. And I remember being like, is this really what I want to do? But it gets better as you progress in the training, and you get to like see the planes and inside of the plane, the cabin, and you get to try like, I don't know, you just get to play on a plane. Let's put it that way. And yeah, so a lot of people ask me if I found the training difficult, and I would say, and I hope I don't sound like I'm awesome or something, but I think when it comes to actual like learning, I don't think it was too bad. I think it was pretty reasonable. The expectations were reasonable. It was a lot of things to remember, but that wasn't the most difficult part for me. And the most difficult part for me was actually like staying sane through training. I had a very bad experience with someone in training, and I don't want to get too much into detail, but I will tell you one thing: every class has its own drama, and I would recommend you to stay away from it. And if somebody is mean to you, try to do something about it. Like, discuss it with them. Ask them like, hey, is there something that I did to you? And so on. I just had like a little incident with my classmate, and I think in a normal situation I wouldn't get so like emotional over it, but I did in training because you're exhausted, because you're tired, because you just sometimes you don't even know why you're doing this. And I get like very emotional, and I get so stressed out over the incident, and sad. I cried several times because of no reason, and I noticed it wasn't just me. It was multiple people. I think all of us, we all went through a time where we just kind of felt down and sad, and I think that's normal. But if I went through a training again, I would do it perhaps a little bit differently. I think the best thing is to focus on training, which I did, but I get like too distracted by the person being mean to me. And having the experience I have now, I know that once you graduate, you probably won't see the person ever again, and none of this will matter. And by being sad and emotional, I was just basically hurting myself. But focus on training, and what I mean by that, we had someone who got dismissed from training because they went partying and they didn't stop at the right time, and the hotel will be watching you. They know that you are training to be a flight attendant, and they will report you, which happened to one of my classmates. So be very careful when it comes to that. And focus on training. Again, the partying thing. Okay, I want to specify that a little bit because I don't think that there is anything wrong with just going to dinner, having a glass of wine, and just kind of like forget about the training for a while. That's a completely different thing than just like going crazy, getting drunk, and getting drunk to the hotel. And I would also recommend you to be friendly to everyone. Obviously, you will see that there are people from all over the country. They have different personalities. They're so different. And like you probably won't be a friend with everyone, but being friendly means that you're not saying mean things about him or her. You are just can just say hi in the morning and smile at them and encourage them and so on. Like I'm not saying you have to be fake, but I'm just saying like really like avoid drama and don't talk bad about people. It was actually something that had to be addressed in our class because people were just they were mean to each other, and it's really sad to see it. But on the other hand, um, I feel like once you go through either SkyWest training or any airline training, then you might actually see that. You might see the reason why it's happening, and I think it's partially because um, you are somewhere with 30 people or more for 30 days. You have different personalities. You are exhausted. You're tired. You just want to be done and start flying, and you kind of get annoyed with each other. But in real life, this wouldn't happen because in real life, you would be done and you would go home and you would just come the next day. But I think that all of us were kind of stressed out with, like if you forget a passport, you're gonna get um, a little, how would you call it, like a notice. And if you get three, then you're going home, and so on. And we also had people who get dismissed during training, and every time when that happened, I will tell you that we all felt terrible. Even though the person maybe wasn't your favorite, you still felt like, what if it's me next time? And I will tell you, only one person got sent home because they failed a test. The rest got sent home because they either didn't follow rules or they forgot one of the required items and it will be specified in training and on the first day what the required items are. Then there were people who got dismissed because, well, okay, I shouldn't say they got dismissed. They left on their own because it was too much for them. And yeah, so that's kind of everything that I wanted to address. I don't necessarily want to address what you're going to learn because that's something that they will tell you, but I think it's kind of interesting to maybe, yeah, to like prepare yourself that this is something that you might go through and it might be a very difficult time for you. Last thing I want to say is that at the end you will go through your wing wing ceremony, and I remember that as like one of the happiest days of my life, because through the training you just can't imagine that you're going to be done with this, but you will, and you are able to invite your friends and family to the wing ceremony, and they will pin little wings on your uniform, and then your training is done and you feel like you know everything and you will rock. And then you will get on the line and you realize I know all these like safety, emergency, and evac procedures, but not so much about the service. And that's actually something that, you know, a lot of people outside this industry, they making fun of flight attendants, like, oh, you guys learn how to pour Sprite and orange juice. But in all reality, I think we spent maybe 1 or 2 days on the service part, because SkyWest flies for 4 airlines, so it's a little bit different for each airline. So we spent maybe 2 days on that. So it wasn't really a lot. And one thing that people actually asked me, and I forgot because I didn't write it down. People ask me a lot about what domiciles, what bases. Domicile means base for flight attendants and pilots. So people ask, what domiciles am I going to get? Which one is the best one, and so on. And I feel like that could be another video, but I will just keep it short and hopefully that's gonna be enough. So in training, one of the first days they will give you a list of all the domiciles. I think right now SkyWest has maybe 15 because they're adding Boise and San Diego. So they will give you a list and you will rank the places that, like, one means that that's what you want, that's like the ideal domicile, and the last number is like, don't care too much about that. So I did mine. First one was Salt Lake, second Denver, third Seattle, I think, and my last one was maybe San Francisco or so on. And it's really hard to say which one is the best one because they are kind of different. And for me, Salt Lake was my number one because I lived in Utah, because I have friends here. I had someone very special in Utah, so I didn't necessarily want to leave. And other people also base it on, this is a fairly cheap place to live, and I think that's a very good strategy if you don't care too much about where you're going to live. But it's always a good idea to maybe start in a city where you know someone, where you live, and so on. So I have my best friend, she is still with SkyWest, and she tells me, she keeps me updated about SkyWest. So from her, I know that the junior domiciles right now would be probably Detroit, Minneapolis, San Francisco, and Chicago. So this is like most likely where new hires get sent. But I personally can tell you that I got sent to Denver, which is very random and our entire class got very random places, even like Colorado Springs, and we got a couple of Seattle, um, and so on. So it was like really all over, but it really, like, you never know, like, if you live in LA and you really really want LA, put LA as your number one. You might get it, you never know. And this is also something that I should have said. So seniority in the aviation industry is everything, and in your class you will be like, everything will be based on your seniority. So even picking the domiciles, I was, I want to say maybe like number 19. I was in the first half of a class, which is good. But unfortunately, you can't really do much about it because it is based on the last four digits of your social. Mine is Mine starts with 3. Let's just put it that way. But you know, if somebody's social starts with 00, there will be probably on the top, and they will have the first pick when it comes to domiciles and so on. If you work, we had 2 guys who worked for SkyWest before, and they were actually our number 1 and number 2 because previous employees just going to be on the seniority list, like on like right on the top, even though their social might be 9987. So I hope that makes sense. We found out our domiciles in the last week of training, and when I found out I got Denver, I was like, okay, cool, number 2. It was still a little bit scary knowing that I will move to Denver, but my good friend was also moving to Denver, so I knew we're going to be good because we will have each other. This is why you should be friendly to everyone, because you might end up in domicile with someone. And then after the wing ceremony, see, when I don't write things down, I'm just a big mess. But anyway, after the wing ceremony, you're technically not really done with training. Your training is done once you fulfill IOE, which stands for Initial Operating Experience, aka that's your first trip. But you are still a trainee. You're not like working flight attendant. And my IOE was a very interesting experience, and perhaps I will talk about it later. And after you finish IOE, this is when you are fully qualified flight attendant. I know about some people who had to retake their IOE, but I think most people will be fine. And if you are finishing training right now and watching this video, don't be freaked out that you don't know much about service and things like that. This is something that you will learn on the line from your IOA instructor, and IOA instructors are really nice and they will answer all of your questions. So have questions, ask everything, be the annoying person that asks everything, because as you might know or might not know, we have planes, or I always say we, I don't work for SkyWest anymore, but I like to think that I do. No, SkyWest has planes that are operated by only one flight attendant, so you'll be on your own at one point if you end up in one of the SkyWest domiciles that has CRJ 200. So really ask questions, and if you have questions about that, then you can, questions about service and so on, ask your IO instructor. Usually your teachers from training will say, email me if you have any questions. Ask your classmates and so on, even though they might not know the right answer. Maybe ask someone who has more experience in the company and so on. But that is training. If you have any questions, let me know. Sorry it is so long, but I hope that I covered majority of you could be interested in. And oh, there is one more thing that I will spend just a couple more seconds on this. Tattoos. SkyWest is very strict with tattoos, and they cannot be covered by makeup, your watch, or band-aids, whatever. They're very strict on that. And if you go to training and if you have a tattoo right here, this is something that might not be covered by your uniform, or if it's like here on your fingers. Do not waste your time and don't quit your job to go to training with SkyWest, because most likely your tattoo will be discovered and you will be sent home. It is kind of the entire industry is against, I don't want to say against, but they're just tattoos, visible tattoos, no, 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 in the aviation industry. Some airlines will tell you it is fine if it's covered. SkyWest, no. But if you have more questions about it, ask me. I don't have any tattoos, so I cannot give you any tricks and tips on how to cover them up. But yeah, so if you get CJO with SkyWest, congrats. And if you're applying for SkyWest, I hope this was helpful. And once again, this video wasn't made for you to be scared. You will have fun in training, but all I'm saying is take it seriously, follow all the rules, be responsible, and I promise you, if you do what you're supposed to do, you will pass SkyWest flight attendant training. Okay, see you soon, bye.